There's been a lot of news recently about the conflict involving Iran. And whenever something like this happens, one question quickly comes up in the housing world. What does this mean for mortgage rates in the housing market? In fact, mortgage rates moved back above 6% just days after the conflict began. But here's something interesting. Some economists say that global events like this can actually cause mortgage rates to go down, not up. I'll explain why that happens sometimes in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at what's happening right now. In the first few days after the conflict began, mortgage rates moved higher. The average 30-year fixed-rate mortgage rose to about 6.13% after briefly dipping below 6% the week before. Financial markets tend to react quickly when global uncertainty increases, and mortgage rates often move right along with them. One reason for that reaction is energy prices. Conflicts in major oil-producing regions can push oil prices higher, and higher energy prices can create concerns about inflation. When inflation expectations rise, mortgage rates often follow. But earlier, I mentioned that global uncertainty can sometimes cause mortgage rates to fall. Here's why. During uncertain times, investors often move money into safer assets. One of the safest places they move that money is into U.S. Treasury bonds. When demand for those bonds rises, their yields tend to fall. And because mortgage rates are closely tied to bond yields, mortgage rates can sometimes fall as well. So, even though the initial reaction pushed rates slightly higher, the longer-term direction is still uncertain. Economists are generally looking at two possible scenarios. If the conflict is relatively short and the markets stabilize, the recent jump in mortgage rates could turn out to be temporary. In that case, the housing market might simply start a little slower before picking up again. However, if the conflict becomes prolonged and continues disrupting energy markets, inflation pressures could keep mortgage rates elevated for a longer period of time. And when uncertainty increases, both buyers and sellers tend to pause until the outlook becomes more clear. But here's the part that really matters for homeowners and buyers here in the Jacksonville area. Over the past year, the Jacksonville housing market has already been shifting toward a more balanced pace. Inventory has been improving. That means buyers are seeing more homes available and less competition than we saw a couple of years ago. Homes are also taking a bit longer to sell. That gives buyers more time to evaluate properties and negotiate terms. So, while global events can certainly influence mortgage rates, the local housing market here in Northeast Florida is still largely driven by population growth, housing supply, and affordability. So what does all this mean if you're thinking about buying or selling a home? The reality is, global events can move mortgage rates in the short term. But trying to perfectly time the housing market based on world events is extremely difficult. Even economists often disagree about what will happen next. What matters much more is whether the home fits your needs, your budget, and your long-term plans. If you find the right home and the numbers make sense for you financially, those factors are usually far more important than trying to predict the perfect moment in the market. Even with the uncertainty we're seeing around the world, housing demand in many parts of the country, including Jacksonville, continues to be supported by limited housing supply and population growth. So while global events can create short-term volatility, the underlying fundamentals of the housing market tend to change much more slowly. If you found this update helpful, be sure to subscribe for more straightforward explanations of what's happening in the housing market. And if you'd like to talk about buying or selling a home here in the Jacksonville area, feel free to reach out anytime. Till then, this is Lucian Valancourt with Native Sun Realty.
Helping you find your place in the sun.